It's funny how some dreams feel so tangible, like you could reach out and touch them, hold them close, make them yours forever. For me, that dream was a piano. Not just any piano, but the piano. A Bosen Dorfer, crafted with such precision that it seemed more alive than wooden strings had any right to be. I had reserved it months ago, a promise to myself that it would be the centerpiece of my first solo concert. My fingers itched to dance on its keys, bringing my compositions to life. That afternoon, I walked into the music store with a spring in my step, ready to finalize everything. I had envisioned the moment for so long, running my fingers over the smooth mahogany surface, feeling the weight of my dreams in front of me. But the moment I stepped inside, the air felt off. The store manager, a soft-spoken man with thinning hair and glasses, approached me with a hesitant smile. "Ah, Miss Adams," he started, his tone nervous. I smiled back, eager, excited. "I'm here for the Bosendorfer. Is it ready?" His face fell, and my heart plummeted with it. I'm afraid the piano has been sold." For a moment, I didn't understand. "Sold? What do you mean? I reserved it months ago." He sighed, looking genuinely regretful. "I know, and I'm sorry, but another buyer came in yesterday. They offered $5 million upfront cash. It was an offer the owner couldn't refuse." The words hit me like a blow. $5 million? Who in their right mind would spend that kind of money on a piano? And why my piano? I stood there, blinking, as confusion turned to anger. "You didn't even think to call me?" "We didn't think you'd be able to match the offer," he stammered. "I'm sorry. Truly?" I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but instead I just stood there, my hands trembling as I tried to process what he'd said. My dream gone, just like that. And then he added, almost casually, "The buyer mentioned they were purchasing it for someone they knew. A Daniel, I think?" My breath caught. "Daniel? My fiancé?" I forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow. "Daniel, are you sure?" "Yes," he said with a nod. "He paid for it himself." A whirlwind of emotions consumed me, confusion, hope, and an odd undercurrent of suspicion. Why would Daniel buy the piano? And why wouldn't he tell me? For a moment, I dared to believe it was some grand romantic gesture, but something about the manager's words, his tone, didn't sit right. That evening, just as I was wrestling with whether to confront Daniel, my phone buzzed. It was Alex, one of my piano students. "Can you come to my house? It's urgent." The message was cryptic, but Alex wasn't the type to exaggerate. I grabbed my coat, still shaken by the day's events, and headed out. When I arrived at Alex's house, I immediately felt something was wrong. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear faint music coming from inside. I stepped in, calling his name. "Alex?" He appeared from the living room, looking nervous. You should come see this," he said quietly. I followed him, my heart pounding. And then I saw it. There in the middle of Alex's living room was the Bosendorfer, my Bosendorfer. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The exquisite piano that I had saved for, dreamed of, fought for. It was sitting here in someone else's home. I turned to Alex, my voice trembling. How'd you get this?" He hesitated, his eyes darting away. "It was delivered this afternoon," he admitted. I thought you knew." "Knew what?" I demanded, my voice rising. "That Daniel bought it. For me." The words felt like a knife to my chest. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the couch, staring at the piano as if it had betrayed me. Why would Daniel do this? Why would he spend $5 million on a piano, my piano, only to give it to someone else? None of it made sense. My hands clenched into fists, my mind spinning with questions I couldn't answer. The piano wasn't just a symbol of my dreams. It was now a symbol of something far darker. A betrayal I was only beginning to uncover. The sight of the piano in Alex's living room was like a punch to the gut. It wasn't just any piano. It was my piano. The one I had spent months saving for, dreaming of, planning for, and now there it was, sitting proudly in a space where it didn't belong. My voice shook as I turned to Alex. "Why is this here? How? How did you even get it?" He looked startled, almost guilty, as if he'd been caught red-handed. "Oh, it was delivered earlier today," he said hesitantly. "I didn't ask for it. I thought you knew." "Knew what?" My voice was sharp, more accusatory than I intended. That Daniel bought it, he said softly, like he was afraid the words might break me. My chest tightened. Daniel bought it? For you? Alex nodded, his expression a mix of confusion and discomfort. It came with a note, but it wasn't signed. It just said it was a gift. I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: anger, disbelief, betrayal. My thoughts spiraled as I tried to make sense of it. Why would Daniel buy my piano, the one he knew was meant for my concert, and give it to Alex? I clenched my fists, trying to steady my breathing. Did you ask him for it? What? No. Alex looked genuinely offended. I didn't even know he was planning this. I swear, I didn't ask for anything. His words sounded sincere, but they didn't ease the ache in my chest. I stared at the piano, its polished surface reflecting the turmoil in my mind. This was supposed to be mine, a symbol of everything I had worked for. Now, it felt tainted, like a cruel reminder of something slipping out of my grasp. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep refused to come. Memories of Daniel's recent behavior played on a loop in my mind. The missed dinners, the way he brushed off my excitement about the concert, the way his smile would falter whenever I talked about Alex's progress. Has it always been like this? Was I just too blind to see it? I thought about the little things, the times Daniel would dismiss my students as a distraction, the way he seemed annoyed when I prioritized teaching over spending time with him. I had chalked it up to stress or a difference in priorities, but now those moments felt heavier, more significant. I couldn't shake the feeling that his actions weren't as innocent as they seemed. Was this about Alex? Was he jealous of the time I spent mentoring him? Or was it something deeper, something I wasn't ready to confront? The next morning, I confided in my best friend, Clara. She listened intently as I spilled everything: the piano, the note, the doubts that had been gnawing at me. None of this feels right, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Clara frowned, her brow furrowed in concern. Honestly, it sounds like he's trying to control you. Think about it. He knew how much that piano meant to you, and instead of supporting you, he gave it away. That's not love. That's something else. I swallowed hard, her words hitting closer to home than I wanted to admit. You need to talk to him, she said firmly, and don't let him twist this around. You deserve answers. By the time Daniel walked through the door that evening, I was ready. Or at least, I thought I was. We need to talk, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. He raised an eyebrow, his expression casual. What's this about? The piano, I said, watching him carefully. Why did you buy it for Alex? His face shifted, just slightly, but enough for me to notice. I thought it would help him. He's talented, and he needed a better instrument to practice on. You knew that piano was for my concert, I said, my voice trembling. You knew how much it meant to me. And I thought you'd understand, he replied, his tone calm but patronizing. I was trying to do something good for both of you. Good? I repeated, anger bubbling to the surface. You didn't even tell me, you just decided for me, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're overreacting. It's just a piano. Just a piano? I laughed bitterly. That just a piano was my dream, Daniel, and you took it away from me. His calm facade cracked for a moment, irritation flashing in his eyes. You're being dramatic. I did this for Alex. He needed it more than you did. I stared at him, disbelief and hurt colliding in my chest. That's not your decision to make, I said quietly. Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Alex. I thought you should see this. Attached was a screenshot of a text from an anonymous number. Thank you for accepting the piano. It's all part of the plan. My stomach dropped. What plan? I glanced at Daniel, his expression unreadable, and suddenly, everything felt too calculated, too deliberate. Later that night, as he showered, I picked up his phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled through his messages, guilt battling with desperation. And then I found them. Photos of him meeting Alex, dated weeks ago. Smiles, handshakes, moments that felt far too intimate for what he claimed was an act of charity. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. This wasn't just about a piano. This was something else entirely, something I hadn't been prepared for. I stood in the middle of the cafe, my heart pounding as I waited for them to arrive. The air was thick with tension, though neither of them had even walked in yet. My mind raced with 100 different scenarios, none of them comforting. Daniel arrived first, his confident stride and forced smile doing little to mask the storm I knew was brewing beneath the surface. You wanted to talk, he said casually, pulling out a chair across from me. I folded my arms, refusing to sit. We're waiting for Alex. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he sat back and tapped his fingers against the table, his eyes scanning the room. A few minutes later, Alex walked in, his expression a mixture of nervousness and guilt. He hesitated when he saw Daniel, but I gestured for him to sit, taking my own seat last. I want the truth, I said firmly, looking between the two of them. No more lies, no more games. I deserve that much. Daniel smirked, but there was no humor in it. Fine. Let's talk about the truth. He leaned forward, his voice laced with bitterness. Let's talk about how you've been spending so much time with your little prodigy here. What? I blinked, caught off guard by the accusation. Don't play innocent, he snapped. You think I didn't notice? The late nights, the constant praise, the way you light up when you talk about him? He gestured toward Alex, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Are you serious right now? I said, my voice rising. He's my student, Daniel. That's it. I've been mentoring him because he's talented and I care about his future. How can you even suggest? Because it's obvious, he interrupted, his voice sharp. You care more about him than you ever did about us. So yeah, I bought the piano. I gave it to him to see how far this little connection of yours would go. I stared at him, my mouth dry. You? What? I wanted to expose it, he admitted, his tone cold. I wanted to see if you'd finally admit what you've been doing behind my back. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. You think Alex and I? My voice trailed off as my thoughts scrambled to make sense of his words. That's not what this is, Alex cut in, his voice trembling. I told you from the beginning I respect her. She's been nothing but supportive, and you twisted it into something it's not. Oh, don't act so innocent, Daniel sneered. You knew what you were doing. You knew exactly how to insert yourself into her life, into our relationship. Stop it! I shouted, my voice breaking. Both of you, just stop. I turned to Alex, my eyes narrowing. Did you know about the piano? About his plan? Alex hesitated, guilt flashing across his face. I found out after it arrived, he admitted. But I didn't say anything because I thought it might help. I thought maybe if he saw that I wasn't a threat. You thought? I interrupted, my voice rising. You thought playing along with his twisted plan was the best way to handle this? I didn't know what else to do, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? I laughed bitterly, tears stinging my eyes. You were both playing games with my life, with my career. Do you have any idea what that piano meant to me? What all of this has cost me? Neither of them spoke, their silence louder than any words they could have said. I trusted you, I said, my voice trembling as I looked at Daniel. I trusted you to support me, to be my partner, and instead, you let your jealousy destroy everything. You couldn't handle me having something of my own, could you? His expression faltered for a moment before he regained his composure. I just wanted you to see how much this was hurting us, he said defensively. This wasn't about us, I shot back. This was about you. Your insecurities, your need to control me, and you, I turned to Alex, my voice sharp. You may have had good intentions, but you made me feel just as powerless as he did. Do you know what that feels like? To have the two people you trusted the most betray you in their own ways? Alex lowered his head, unable to meet my gaze. The weight of it all hit me at once. I felt my chest tighten, tears spilling over despite my best efforts to hold them back. I gave everything to this relationship, I said, my voice cracking. I sacrificed so much, and for what? To be manipulated? To have my dreams treated like a game? Neither of them said a word. The silence was deafening, and for the first time I realized just how alone I had been all along. I stood, grabbing my bag and slinging it over my shoulder. I'm done, I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. I'm done with both of you. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt a strange mix of emotions, pain, anger, and a small flicker of relief. For the first time in a long time, I was choosing myself, and for now, that was enough. I stood across from him in the park, the wind biting at my cheeks. It was the same place where we had once shared laughter and promises of forever. But now, the silence between us was suffocating. Daniel looked at me with that familiar mix of confidence and contrition, as though he still believed he could talk his way out of this. "I don't know what you want me to say," he began, his voice low. "I've made mistakes, but everything I did was because I love you." "Love?" I repeated, my voice steady but cold. "Is that what you call it? Manipulation? Control? Undermining everything I've worked for? That's love to you?" He shifted uncomfortably, stuffing his hands into his coat pockets. "I was scared, okay? Scared of losing you, scared that you didn't need me anymore." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm. "I did need you, Daniel. I needed you to be my partner, my supporter. But instead, you made me feel small, like I had to choose between my dreams and this relationship. And when I didn't fall in line, you tried to sabotage me." His eyes darted to the ground, guilt written across his face. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "But you did," I said softly, my voice breaking despite my resolve. "You hurt me in ways I didn't even realize until now, and the worst part, I let you." I felt the weight of my own words, the truth of them cutting deeper than anything he could have said. I had ignored the signs, the subtle digs in my career, the way he dismissed my students' accomplishments, the jealousy he never even tried to hide. I had convinced myself that love meant compromise, even when that compromise cost me pieces of myself. "I can do better," he said, stepping closer. "I will do better. Just give me another chance." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "It's too late, Daniel. I can't keep sacrificing myself for a relationship that only takes from me. I've lost enough already." His face fell, and for a moment, I thought I saw real regret in his eyes. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I turned and walked away, each step feeling like a small act of liberation. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Later that evening, I found myself standing at Alex's door. The weight of everything that had happened hung over me like a cloud, but I knew I couldn't leave things unresolved. He opened the door, his expression wary but kind. I I wanted to say I'm sorry," I began, my voice trembling. "For everything, for dragging you into this mess, for not seeing how much pressure you were under. You didn't deserve that." He stepped aside, letting me in. "You don't have to apologize. None of this was your fault." "Maybe not," I said, sinking onto the couch. "But I still feel like I let you down. I should have stood up to him sooner. I should have seen the damage it was doing, not just to me, but to you." He sat beside me, his tone gentle. "You were trying to hold everything together. I can't blame you for that. And honestly, I think walking away from him is the best thing you could have done for both of us." His words brought a strange sense of comfort, even as the ache in my chest lingered. For so long, I had been fighting to prove myself to someone who didn't deserve it. Now I realized it was time to start proving something to myself. The weeks that followed were a blur of emotions, but I poured every ounce of my pain and determination into my music. The piano that had once been a source of heartbreak became a symbol of resilience. With the help of my students and friends, I organized a charity concert, a chance to not only showcase our talent, but to reclaim what I had almost lost. The night of the concert, the auditorium buzzed with energy. As I stood backstage, watching Alex perform one of his compositions, I felt a swell of pride. He had come so far, and knowing I had played a small role in that was enough to make all the struggles worth it. When it was my turn to take the stage, I hesitated for just a moment, my fingers hovering over the keys. But as the first notes filled the air, all the doubt and fear melted away. The music flowed effortlessly, each chord a testament to the journey that had brought me here. I didn't see Daniel in the audience. I didn't need to. Word had already spread about what he had done, and the once charismatic man who had thrived on his reputation was now facing the fallout of his own actions. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. As the final note lingered in the air, the audience erupted into applause. I looked out at the sea of faces, my friends, my students, Alex, and felt a warmth I hadn't known in years. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't defined by someone else's expectations or limitations. I was free to be myself, to pursue my dreams without fear or compromise. And as I stepped off the stage, surrounded by the people who had supported me through it all, I realized something important. The pain had been worth it, not because it led me to them, but because it led me back to myself.